everyone, this is Arg, the developer of Sega N Tools. I just wanted to make a quick YouTube tutorial on exporting models from Blender to Sonic Riders DX. Before starting, I'd like to give a shout out to Sewer56 for his help on the bones. I really couldn't have done it without him. Now, let's begin!
Surprise sewer appearance? Wow. Anyway, in this small section of the video, I'm gonna show you how to actually extract the models, since, well, no modeling tutorial will be complete without actually knowing how to put the models out of the game and put them back into the game, so let's get started. First of all, you're gonna need to download a few things. One of them I already have shown up on the screen. You will first need the .NET runtime, specifically 5.0 desktop runtime. This might change in the future, but there will always be a link in the description for the newest version that you will need to download. And you will need this to run the different tools that are used to actually modify the game. Second of all, you will need a tool called the Riders Archive tool from a repository called sonicriders.index. And this tool will actually allow you to unpack files from the game itself. And those files, well, archives, will actually contain the models you will want to edit. So what you will do is you will simply download the thing, easy peasy, extract the thing, and you have it right here. We'll save this for later. Now, if you're dealing with the PC version of Riders, what you're gonna do is you're going to be dealing with a folder called data. In the PC version of Riders, there's a folder called data, and inside this folder will be all the files that you'll need. If you're working with GCN or GameCube, you will want to go into Dolphin, find the Sonic Riders ROM that you want to edit, right-click it, go to Properties, scroll to the File System tab, click the disk, right-click, extract entire disk, and let's say we make a folder, SRDX 2.0, test, sure. Select folder, it will extract, this will take a moment. And now that it's done, if you refresh your game list, it should hopefully appear right here. You will know if it's your extracted copy if you see a 0-byte file size, as right here. And you could also check where it extracted by going into the info tab and looking at path. But yeah, if you right-click this and you go to the path where it's saved, so let me copy this into an Explorer window. And you go one folder down, go into the files folder. On the GameCube version, you will find the files here. Easy peasy. In order to find the model that you want to edit, for example, if you want a specific character, I made a wiki called Sonic Riders Index. This wiki details different aspects of how you can modify the games, the different tools you can use, and this wiki contains a very useful page called the file listing. This page lists every single file in the game and what it contains. So if you want to look for a certain character, you could, for example, search Amy and scroll down a bit, and you will see character, single player, Amy plus default. If you extract this archive, you will find a model of Amy on their default gear for single player. All character archive names use the format P for player, another letter identifying what the character is, so A would be Amy, S would be Sonic, and 2 digits, which signify which board the character is on. Since in vanilla Sonic Riders, the board and the character are part of the same model. If you're dealing with one of the more newer Riders mods for GCN, like Sonic Riders DX 2.0, you will find that the gear and character models have been separated. So at least in the case of the X, there will be no PA01, PA02, PA03. There will be just PA00, and that will contain just the character model. And you know, having character model and the gear model separate is more convenient for working, since you'll have to export the character once to actually get it all to work, you know? So anyway, we will wanna grab the file, so let me go to the extracted GameCube build. Let's find PA00. Ba-ba-da. And now what you wanna do to extract this folder, to extract this archive which contains the character model in, you will want to go back to the tools you downloaded previously, Writer's Archive tool as mentioned. You will want to open a command prompt or PowerShell, because this is a command line application. If you've never used command line, it might be a bit tricky to learn, since, you know, there's no UI, no mouse support, and you're going to be needing to type stuff, but it's not too bad, let me show you. So you want to open a command prompt, just press the Windows key, type in C and D, press enter. You have a fully working command prompt. And what you want to do now is you want to drag the archive tool and past the name of the archive tool you want to add the word extract, and if you press enter you will see a bunch of options you can set. Source, where the file will be extracted to, whether to use big endian. This flag, if you're extracting for GameCube, set the if you're extracting for GameCube, include this. If you're extracting for PC, Xbox, or PS2, wait, PS2 exists? Lol. Do not include this flag. So okay. Writer's Archive tool. I just pressed up to go back to the previous command. Writer's Archive tool, extract -- source. And we're gonna drag this file onto the command window, because this is the file we want to extract. And we want to set -- save path. And we're gonna make a new folder here. Just call it output, or whatever you want to call it. Drag the folder onto this, so we now have source, we now have save path we want to save, and since this is for since we're using GCN or GameCube as an example, we want to include the big endian flag, -- big endian, and if you press enter, the files will be exported to here. If you look at this might look a bit cryptic, since Sonic Riders unfortunately does not include file names. So we have to do a bit of guessing. but in any case, if you look in the folder it extracted, there will be some cryptic looking folder names. This section is just the type of file, the type of stuff that's contained inside, and this section is just the order which was in. What you want to do is you want to find a folder with 5 zeros at the end, and very first thing you will see is a file with extension GNO or file with extension XNO. If you're on PC, this will be 0000.xno. If this is GameCube, it will be 00000.gno. And this is the file you want to import into Blender. All done for now. Bye bye. It's ARC time.
Alright, so the requirements for the latest version of the exporter are you need to be using a Windows machine and you need to be using the latest version of Blender. You also need to have a base model and then your new custom model. So maybe Ulala for your base model and then like a PepsiMan model for your new custom model. Please note that in the future the exporter will not be locked to Windows, and the way that everything is set up here might change in future versions. Alright, so the first things you need to do are to download Blender and to download my tools. So if you want to get Blender, you can either get it on Steam or you can get it on Blender's official website. Personally, I recommend Steam because it automatically updates, so you don't have to go to the website every time that there's an update and then re-download it and reinstall it, you know. With my tools, what you want to do is go into code and then download zip. I know it's tempting to use releases, however, at the current moment, I haven't actually uploaded a new version with the exporter, and if you use code up here, then you're using the latest version. Alright, the next step is to actually install the add-on into Blender. So you want to go into Edit, Preferences, and then under here you go and press Install, go to your zip file, select it, and you just got to make sure this is ticked. If you don't have this ticked, then, you know, it won't actually run. So, what you want to do is you want to import the base model and your custom model. So I've got my custom model right here. If I unhide everything, we got Neo Metal, Superform, and you got to import your base model. So you're just going to go under the import menu, click on the base model, make sure you have the game set. So I'm setting it to Riders because this is from a Riders game. And you just want to make sure your settings are right. So you probably, this isn't going to matter in particular because you're probably just going to delete all these meshes, but usually I'd recommend having this setting. Alright, import it in. Well, when you're exporting anyway. Alright, next step. Look at this model. Looks fine and all, but there's a bit of an issue here. When you go to pose mode, select an arm. The bone name is Shadow 15 Bone 32. Yeah, it's not very useful. So I wrote a little script to help, just for you guys. What you gotta do is you gotta select the armature skeleton that you're renaming. You run the script. Boom. Forearm L. Amazing. Still works and everything. So now you can tell what every bone is supposed to be. This is pretty useful when you go into the hierarchy down here. So you can actually see what you're supposed to be waiting to, what the rig is supposed to be. Instead of being a bone 5, bone 8, and it's just useless. So the main thing that we'll be doing now is re-weighting the model. So, ignoring that this is using a pretty similar rig, sorry. You kind of gotta make the weights make sense. You can't just grab a model from a different game and then just put it in Blender and then export it and have it working in Riders. You gotta actually weight the model to one of the Riders' rigs and then, you know, figure it out from there. So, for this example, what I'm gonna do is delete all of Shadow's meshes because we do not need them. And we're gonna delete Metal's skeleton. Oop. He's rotated. This is, because, well, this is an NN thing wherein all the models are always sideways, but my tool rotates it sideways to be facing upwards for you. Because it's easier to edit that way. Alright. So, what I'm gonna do now is just center this. What you'll notice, number one, is that the bones don't exactly line up. Which you would have to modify your model to actually match where the bone positions are if we didn't have custom bones, but we do because of Sewer's work, so we don't have to worry about that. So what you want to do is, I know this is a mess. Riders has about 71 bones, which is I mean, you can see there's a lot of stuff going on here, but because we can use the rig, and we can see the bone names. It makes it a lot easier with modifying and putting all the positions to be correct. So what I'm gonna do, just to show you guys, is I'm gonna just edit this. Oh my god, I forgot. I thought it's different in edit mode. So you might want to put it into like a bone view, which you can do by selecting the armature, the skeleton. Viewport display instead of this one, which is the shape of that kind of triangular bone blender thing. Just to it to stick, and you'll notice how you can see a bit better because all the bones aren't overlapping. So what you're gonna want to do is check these bones out. Notice how the forearm is like quite a bit lower. In this case, what I would do first, just because Shadow's a bit bigger than, a bit smaller, Metal's a bit bigger than the Shadow, what I would probably do is scale up this mesh just a tiny bit. Just a little bit. See, now the positions are a bit better. You don't have to do this with every model, but you're gonna find this useful with models that are like, like if you had Big or something and you're putting it over Cream or something for some reason. I don't know why you would do that. I'm just trying to provide an example. But the rigs are very different in size. So if you scale it, it'll be a bit better. It'll be a bit better. The animations will sync up a bit better, and you won't have to move each bone manually by hand and go insane. Alright. So I'm just gonna apply the scale, which you can do under Control A as it says there. I have it set up so that when I press spacebar, which you can change in one of the settings here, I think default or something like this, you can change it so that spacebar, instead of triggering this thingamabob, it just does the search menu, which I have set because it's way easier to use. So what you want to do is, say these knee bones for example, I'm just going to move them to be more like where the knee is. And maybe these shoe bones, I'm just going to move them down a bit maybe. Move them a little bit so that it's just a bit more in line with where they should be. I would like to tell you that when you want to move your bones, be very careful. Moving it like this is okay, this is not okay, and this is not okay. And why is that? Well, if I was to do this for example, this actually changes the bone's rotation. And if you change the bone's rotation, the game doesn't really like to play well, it breaks the animations, so it's just better to move the bone completely instead of moving one part of the bone. The bone head or the bone tail. Alright, so the next step obviously is going to be weighting it. So at this point we would say we've got the rig set up to be positioned good enough for Metal, so we need to find a way to weight this model. Now, if you notice here, I actually already have it weighted up because we use this one in-game, so obviously, like, I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't. But let's say that I didn't. You know, how would I do that? Well, first off, I'm gonna hide this. You can press H to hide it, or you can just press that little eye thingy there. And then I'm gonna select all of the meshes with the letter A on my keyboard. So now we've selected everything. I'm gonna go unhide the armature, control, shift. So now we've got the meshes and the skeleton selected, and then control P to parent. Usually what you would do is you go into armature deform and you choose one of these ones. I'm not sure if anyone actually uses envelope weights, and I'm not sure if you should use automatic weights, because what might happen is that if you've noticed when we look at the rig, we've got a bajillion bones. It might try weighting to some bones that it shouldn't weigh to. Like, it might just give you a very messy model. So I usually just parent it like this, parent with empty groups, and then I weight it myself. You're probably going to have to look at a YouTube guide, because I actually don't really know how to weight paint in Blender, to be quite honest with you. I usually just assign things manually by going like here, and you know, you select a vert or two and then you assign the weight here. You can also do it in this view down here, where you select a weight and then you select the bone you want to tie it to, and then you assign the weight. And you can see it goes up there. It does it for all those verts. But regardless, that's the basic way to get all your weights done and get your rig modified. Next thing you're gonna have to do is materials. So, for materials, Sonic Riders, which is the game we're focusing on modding at the moment, it supports a few texture types. For example, we've got the diffuse one, which is what you can see right here. It's just like the base color, really. Just the base color we got going on. You can, like, you know. You've also got a mission, which lets you see things in the dark. It basically just doesn't apply any shading, which what we have assigned to Metal's eyes. If you've looked in game, and like, you can look at him, if you go into free cam and then you look at him from like the back or something, you can see his eyes lit up, which is pretty cool. And there's also the reflection texture, which is what you see with the boards. So if you look at, I'm not sure if the default boards have it, but anyway, some of the boards, they have a reflection texture map, which is what gives them like a shiny look. It makes them a little bit shiny, because it's like with the reflection map. So, what you gotta do is go into the shading tab. I usually press Shift-C to center it. So if you're like looking, if your cursor's all the way over here, you press Shift-C and then it'll center it. And then if you press 1 on your numpad, it'll make you face the model straight on. So what you'll want to do is you want to select your model, select the mesh, and in this view we're going to press N again to open the node names. So we're going to select, for example, we got this one. We're going to rename it from image texture to diffuse texture. This means the tool will read it and say, that's a diffuse texture. I think I'm gonna put that in the game. I think this model has this texture assigned, so like I'll put it in the game, you know. And for like the eye, we do emission texture. I always spelled that word wrong. And if you were to have a reflection map, you would set it as reflection texture. There's no spaces, it's just you got the two words capitalized. If you set this up right, then the game's exporter, the exporter for the game, and then tools, it'll be able to read it. It'll say, you're using these textures. Alright, cool, I'm gonna add them. I see ya, I hear ya, I know what you're doing. This isn't the final version, I think. In a new version, I've been working on some texture node, blah blah blah, material stuff, so it might look a little bit different. Like, I've got this whole different other setup, more like this, where you just can plug it in, like it's just, this texture goes into this node named image, whatever, I can't remember what it's called. There's got like one called image, and there's one called like reflection, and there's one called base color or whatever. I'm planning to make it a little bit different if I go with that route. I figure that will be a bit easier instead of having to rename things, and it's a bit more like you can preview what it's gonna look like in the game a bit more. So it'll be a bit easier and better for everyone, you know. And it's also more customizable because at the moment you really just have the base color, alpha, and texture names supported, but there's quite a few other things that Writers stores and reads. Alright. So once you rename all them textures, make sure you go through all your meshes, because sometimes models, they might have this be one material and this be another material and this be another, and it's like, you know, you really want to avoid having that, because then you're just taking up extra space for like the same material. But I can't stop you. Just make sure you rename your texture nodes to be the right thing, because otherwise it won't be read. Alright. So, at this point, you've basically done everything, but what you're gonna want to do is maybe have a little look-see for any modifiers or anything you might have missed. For example, if we were to delete this one, and we were to add a modifier, to it, such as the mirror one, this isn't going to be exported. It will only export this side. If you don't know what modifiers are or anything about this, you don't have to worry, but I'm just saying for the people who like to use modifiers and everything, you gotta apply these first, otherwise they won't come out. You'll be missing half your model. Alright, and then once you've got rid of all your modifiers, so it's just the armature modifier, which is what both of these ones are. This is just from the original rig that we had. It's time to prepare your model. Which is this function right here. So you'll notice that we've got Geno, Xeno, and we got some games here. Because there's going to be Riders GameCube, you want to select this one. If you're doing it for a different game, what you got to be careful of is selecting the right game, because for example, Riders PC and 06 have different vertex flags, which means they're kind of incompatible. If you prepare it for Sonic 2016 and then you put that one into into the game, sorry, you're gonna get a serious case of game crash. So you gotta make sure to select the right game. Once you prepare your model and you've gone through everything, preparing the model is required because what happens is you don't know everything that you need to do for Geno and everything, and it helps like optimize the models. So it gets rid of all the extra vertex groups that we had, so it's only the ones that it's weighted to, and it splits the meshes based on if they're weighted or not. Like you can see here, this is weighted just to the spine and this is weighted to more than one thing. This is done because it's optimal for NN. It also splits it based on material, so you'll notice that none of these have 2 materials, and that is because the game, and any game that uses NN, doesn't support it. Because NN doesn't support having 2 materials per mesh. So, what you're gonna want to do is, now that you've prepared your model, you've weighted everything, You put your bones there in the right positions. You've checked your materials. You're gonna go and press export. So, you're gonna go make sure you're on the right game. For now, it only supports riders. Sorry. But in the future, you'll have to make sure it's got the right game. For riders, you gotta have, really the only required setting is this one. These two just take up extra space, but I kind of recommend having this one on, otherwise you can't actually get the model name, so when you unpack it from an archive, it will be just called unnamed model. When you're doing a character, you probably want to select player for this setting, because these are the settings that character models normally have in the game. If you want to do highest quality, it takes up a lot of space, but it's we're getting rid of all the crunchiness. It's super high quality, but it takes quite a bit of space. If you want to do smaller size, it takes the least amount of space, but you might run into some issues if you don't want it to be a little bit crunchy, because the normals do not have very much space, which normals just define shading. You don't really need to worry about it. All you gotta know is this one takes a lot of space, but it's pretty high quality. This one takes not very much little space, but it's pretty low quality. It's pretty crunchy. This one is the one that the game normally uses. You've got to be careful with having this on short if you're going to use it. If you're going to use it for like stages, and you can have your vertexes really far away from the origin. So if you're making a custom stage, you might want to have that off if your stage is going to be, if the mesh that you're selecting goes very far away from the origin, because it's just a short and you lose your decimal point if the values are too big. So it's just like snaps. It's just like when you play Minecraft and you get to the far lands and how it's all like, you can't move very far because of, it's like floating points and stuff. Yeah, it's just like that. So, you know, use this if you wanna, but I just recommend doing this because you're just doing a player model. Now, in this case, because it's a super, I could just export this as it is. But let's say you didn't want your board. Get rid of the board. You want to just ride this. you want to just use this on like in game. You know, just playing it, just like a normal character, not a super, just a normal character. What you want to do is you export it, and you want to define it as a baseboard. So what happens is, it will add a texture for you for the magic carpet, because the baseboard character is basically just magic carpet, because magic carpet doesn't have a mesh for the board. You don't need to worry about anything too much, you just gotta make sure you select that, and you have no board attached. Once you do that, and you export it, it'll be fine. Oh, I don't know if you have to have something selected, hang on. Select it, I use your player, these ones, export it. Boom. Is your custom model exported? Now, when you export your model, I know it's tempting to write your file name in there, but what we do instead is we read this and we export it as this name. Why do we do that? For batch export, say for example you wanted to make your character have skates. Well, other than having this off, you're going to have quite a few models and you're going to be exporting them one by one, which is going to be very annoying. So I put this in so you could select all your skate models and then export them all out. Just like that. So you don't have to select each one and then make sure the settings are right and then, you know. And that's it. You've exported your model. Back to you, Sewer.
Ara? You're still here? Well, I guess I need to put it back into the game, right? So, okay. Let's go to the folder we extracted from earlier. And if the file is exported from Blender, you will just rename it to the name of the original file, so 00000. Ba-ba-da. And then you do writer's archive tool.exe, delete all the rest, type in pack, and you will see the packer options. Ba-ba-da. Pack. For source, you just set it to the folder you extracted, so we extracted over here earlier, so we take this. For save path, we want to make a new file. The original file was called, if we go back to the folder, PA00, pretty sure. Yep, it was PA00, so save path. We're just going to drag it over here. Because this is GameCube, we're going to specify big endian. So big endian and compress because it takes less space. Press enter. Done. And hopefully, if all went well, you could now boot up your game from Dolphin and it'll work. Please bear in mind, this is not a super high quality production. It's just a video we decided to do on the whim just for fun. But I hope it proves useful to some people. So, well, here it is. Bye bye.